Well, welcome everyone. Thomas Montgomery, and it's my pleasure to visit with you this morning. Our topic today on Tuesday, since yesterday was Monday, this is our first training of the week. Yesterday was Memorial Day, I should say. Tuesday, May 26th, and we're right about 8 o'clock Central. We want to convey to you this morning the importance of collaborating to improve business financial literacy. And that serves both to benefit those that you educate, and you can receive significant financial rewards. Today, we're going to spend a few minutes in talking about the three different scenarios in which that we can go out and educate to, again, help others and generate income for yourself. What I think it's important to recognize is that most small business owners have a strong desire, a strong need, there's a strong demand for accessing capital. But what we have to do is prepare them first. As I was preparing for today's webinar, I tried to think of the best analogy, and this may or may not resonate with you, but I'll use it nonetheless. A few years ago, I have four children, still have four children, but a few years ago, three of the four were in high school. And I became a little bit worried about some of the activities in the high school. And I decided, well, what could I do as a father to have the most and direct impact? And I said, yeah, I'm going to go be a teacher. I'm going to go be a teacher, much to their chagrin, at their high school and be there and be an available resource for my teenage children and to be able to interface with administration and their teachers and help ensure their success. So I just decided literally one day I'm going to become a teacher. Now, any of you could do that, and I'd encourage you to consider that. But rather it be becoming a teacher, becoming a doctor, becoming an attorney, becoming an accountant, whatever it is, you can't just say, oh, I'm going to be a teacher and start applying for teaching jobs. There are prerequisites. There are requirements that need to be met. Now, any of you could go just apply for every teaching job that's posted on Indeed or anywhere else. But if you're not qualified, you're not going to even be considered. That actually is a pretty good analogy. So many small businesses want and need capital. And they could go apply anywhere they want for capital. But you know what? If they don't meet the prerequisites, if they don't meet the underlying requirements, they're not going to be approved. So you see, what's really needed in the marketplace isn't another lender or, heaven forbid, another loan broker. What's needed is what you and I do, is we provide technical assistance, right? We help improve the business financial literacy of the entrepreneurs so then they can apply for funding and get approved. So with that being said, this education shouldn't be seen as, well, I don't know if this really meets what the market's needing. It's exactly what the marketplace needs, because the banks are already there, the credit unions are already there. But the problem is most small business owners don't qualify for the funding sources available, and that's why they need us, and that's why they need to go through one or more of these three programs I'm going to talk about. So maybe that seems a little distracting, but it's very important that you get your arms around why this is so relevant. This is exactly what's needed in the marketplace. Now, I understand the typical small business owner, busy, stressed, often a case of urgency, I need capital, and getting educated and getting prepared may not be their desire. They just want the results. But it doesn't work like that. You can't just decide to become a teacher and say, I'm a certified teacher now, I can just go get a teaching job. No, you have to meet the requirements to check the boxes. And that's what we help them do. So with that being said, let's drill into the three different scenarios in which that we conduct business financial literacy and make sure that you have a good understanding of how it operates and how you would benefit. Because ultimately, we're looking for more branch managers to go out and facilitate and help us teach these workshops. And so I want you to put your mindset on of what's in it for you, and let's go through each of these. Okay, so scenario number one. This is really what we kicked off, which is a one-day access to capital workshop. The design, it's in person, 8 hours long, but it's not an 8-hour lecture. No one wants that. Instead, we're going to have about 60 minutes to 90 minutes up front and teaching some key principles. And then we're going to literally put together their business plan and financial projections and personal financial statement, get their key person policy started, all right there while we're together. So we're getting a lot accomplished in one day. There is a cost to the participants, and they pay $499 for that one-day class. You earn half. We're going to have at least 20 attendees, so you can see that you're going to generate at least $5,000, which is frankly the fourth bullet. There are some instances that we can find sponsors to help offset some or all of the participant cost. But I don't want you going into that mindset, because as soon as we start thinking, well, only if it's free that it'll work, then we'll get distracted. So what we need to do, and I'll talk about in a minute how we work with host, we need to find the host, set up the event, and then if possible, we'll secure a sponsor. But the sponsor doesn't always, there's not always going to be a sponsor. Now, what is the expected outcome? And of course, there's a hyperlink here, and I'll send this out, but there's full details of this workshop on our Smart Money Alliance website. My goal isn't to give you all the nuts and bolts of the workshop, but instead to help you understand the stratification of these three different scenarios. Now, so why would well, I digress a minute. I was thinking about this again as I prepared for this webinar this morning. I was thinking about it yesterday over the holiday. And it dawned on me, quite frankly, when I was in the shower, that I don't think we've ever made this clear enough to you. So let me hit it now, and I should have started this webinar with it. Many lenders will not even consider a loan application if they have not worked with a technical advisor like us. Now, I'm not saying that they have to work with us. Don't misconstrue. But it's an honest and accurate statement. You can't go apply for many types of business loans on your own. You have to have worked with a technical advisor. They literally ask, who's the technical advisor that you've worked with, and are they on the list, the approved list, which we obviously are. So that's number one. You literally can't get many types of loans just on your own. And then secondly, in many cases, those lenders will give preferential treatment to clients that have worked with an officially recognized technical advisor like us, because they know that there's been work and prep and vetting that's occurred. And so that allows the lender to kind of get down to business rather than worrying about, is this even economically viable or not? That's a huge deal, right? And my son's 10 years old, and I was talking to him yesterday, and I always try to ask him, what are you going to do when you grow up? What are you going to do when you get out of high school? What are you going to college for? And he doesn't know and didn't really care right now, typically. But the number one question if you're in sales is, why should you buy this from me? Or the number one question you should anticipate from your prospect is, why should I buy this from you? Well, the number one reason that a small business owner should work with you and attend one of your financial literacy workshops is it's going to greatly improve their access to capital. Now, just because they pay $499 and they come here and we put together a loan package and help them match the right type of capital, does that guarantee that they're going to go get $7 million tomorrow? Of course not. That's too good to be true. But some people are not very financially literate. And so they sometimes don't understand that there's prerequisites, as we were talking about before. And so there's going to be some people that attend your workshops that never get funding because either they're not willing to put their part of the work into it, their idea is not economically viable, or they just have unrealistic expectations. But that's not a failure. And I would argue, when I worked for the SBA, which y'all heard, which was up through July 5th of last year, 2019, sometimes helping a small business owner not get funding is a success if their financial projections suggests that it's going to be a money-losing venture, you're actually putting them in peril by progressing. Now, again, our goal is to get small businesses capital, but specifically what we're doing is providing the technical assistance, the business financial literacy, the preparedness. So, scenario number one-day class, start with some financial literacy topics, build out the loan package and financial projections that'll be completed during the day. We'll also help them complete their personal financial statements. And then lastly, they'll get their key person policy started. It's a great deal, great package, scenario one. All right, so let's move on to scenario two. Scenario two, I have to give William credit for, because frankly, he invented it. And we're going to be doing William's first scenario two workshop in Chicago this weekend. So this is what William did, and he kind of back-ended into it, but it's a remarkable idea. So kudos to William. So, and he's a branch manager. So what he helped us develop, it's a one-day workshop. The content is pretty darn close to scenario one. It's very little different, but what he's doing is he's enrolling the participants in the SBA Express program first, which they pay $1,999, just shy of $2,000. He kept half, he forwards half to us, just like you would do. Now, normally, the SBA Express program is done remotely, virtually. It doesn't require us to get together. And it's a curriculum that's designed to be completed in 30 days, which is still great. And then our goal is to have an SBA 7A Express loan funded in around 30 days. What William decided is he identified a host and said, hey, I have 10 people that are enrolling. Could we get together and knock this out in one day? And I was at Target with my family when he called me. He might have texted me and I called him back. I said, William, well, when do you want to do that? This weekend, right? So like with 5-6 days lead time, we scheduled the workshop. And so we'll be having that in Chicago this weekend. The outcome is different for scenario two. Scenario two, and I don't want to say it's exclusive to getting an SBA loan, but that's really where we have our mindset. So we'll literally complete the loan application during the one-day workshop. So that's, I guess, the biggest difference is that in scenario one, we're going to have some education that's focused, that's practical in the process, not loose, irrelevant information. We're going to complete the loan package. We're going to put together the financial projections. We're going to assemble the personal financial statement. We're going to get the key person applied for. But within scenario two, we know that this group is targeted on a specific funding vehicle, the SBA 7A Express, which goes from $50,000 to $150,000. And so we'll even fill out that application at the event and be ready to apply the next day. And as you've heard us say, and again, it's not our timeline, so you don't have to be skeptical of us, the SBA preferred lenders that we frequently work with for this type of capital is funding in 15 days. So frankly, that's not 15 days from the day of paying William $19.99, and that's not 15 days from attending the workshop. It's 15 days from application. And in this case, we're going to fill out the application together at the workshop. So literally the next business day, we can get that submitted. So that's the difference. And so the income is a different model for scenario two. So you're making $1,000 a pop off of everyone that enrolls. And then you're also sharing in the back end revenue, the capital raise, the performance fee that's split 50-50 with you. And again, you're still writing the key person policies. So there's some subtle differences between scenario two and one. Now, one of you had asked a question earlier of, well, can we do this online? Absolutely. The SBA program is available by design online. We don't have to gather people together to do scenario two. It's optional, and it can be effective in terms of accelerating the process and having even a higher level of compliance. As you and I both know, people get busy and they get distracted, but if we're sitting in a room together, knocking it out as a group, we're much more likely to have compliance than just guiding them through online. But if you have someone that wants to do online, the SBA Express program is frankly set up to be online. So kudos to William for figuring this out. We'll be doing our first one. I've done many of scenario ones, by the way. Again, I was a full-time college professor. We built a curriculum, credit earning through the college, and did almost exactly scenario one. Scenario two, we'll do our first one of those with William in Chicago this weekend. Okay, now scenario three is kind of the lighter version, and that's where you're taking any one of our individual 60 to 90 minute topics and just doing it a la carte. And so again, you can click on the Smart Money Alliance website and see all the different topics, and we can find hosts, which we'll talk about in a moment, and even set up a speaker series. But scenario three is just the a la carte, one topic at a time, more general business financial literacy, not focused on the loan package and financial projections as a specific outcome. Participants normally pay $20 to attend one of these. Half of it goes to the host, and then the other half goes to you. We don't charge anything. We don't get paid off of that, which is fine. And so if you have 10 to 20 people and you're making $10 per, you can see that's where the income comes from. And of course, this gives you great exposure. Any of you that are business to business professionals should see tremendous value separate from the upfront income that we're outlining here. Now you have relevant and credible relationships with many more prospects that you might be able to help with in other ways. So those are the three scenarios. Up until now, we had two scenarios, scenario one, scenario three, and now we have the William scenario, scenario two. And he's in the process of setting up his second workshop that we'll be having here soon as well. So it's working. Okay, so let's talk about the logistics. So, and you can be the exception, but I'm going to talk about the norm. So normally when we set up workshops, regardless which of these three scenarios, we work with a host. The host is an organization or an institution that has a sphere of influence of small business owners. It could be chambers or churches or co-working spaces, business associations, business organizations, insurance agencies, could be a variety of different types of hosts. But the host is going to provide the physical space, usually the AV equipment, which comes along with the space, and they even provide the audience. And so that removes us and you from having the burden to go rent rooms. You nor us should ever need to rent a room to do the workshops. And that prevents you and us from having the responsibility of putting the butts in the seats. That's the role of the host. Well, what would motivate a host to do this? Why would a host want to be a host? Two reasons. They're looking out for the betterment of their sphere of influence by helping their small business members, congregation, whatever the descriptive term is, be more successful. And then secondly, we can do a revenue share with the host to make it well worth it. So there's the altruistic benefits, and then there's the financial benefits that would motivate the host. Any host that's truly concerned about helping small businesses in their community, and they may use this to even attract more people to their entity or their organization, but the point is any small business any host that's concerned about small businesses' well-being should understand that business financial literacy is the key for those same reasons that we just talked about. Most small businesses want and need more capital, but it's not just the desire for it that makes it come true. Not at all. I mean, I guess that's the first step, but we have to meet the underwriting criteria. We have to put together the loan package. And you'll see it if you're going through it or you help us teach. You know, the loan package has almost 15 line items, 15 bullet points, what we have to put together to present to the lender. And could a small business owner try to do it on their own? Yeah, that's fine. If they don't want to come attend one of your classes, whether it be scenario 1 or scenario 2, especially to get prepared and have their loan package put together, then say, fine, just go to your bank and get your money now. Why do you need us? But what you know and what I know is most small business owners are not going to be approved if they just go to their bank. They're not properly prepared. And in fact, you should be getting a steady stream of referrals from local business bankers into your financial literacy workshops because they see the problem. So many small businesses, well-intended, wander in, think they're going to get some money, and the bank's left with saying no. And it sure is a lot more palatable for that local banker who wants to maintain a very positive relationship and positive perception of the community is to say, well, not yet. Let's get you prepared first. And I'd like you to contact Charlotte Dumas. She's a local educator here, and she's putting on a number of literacy workshops that can help you get prepared. So then ultimately, you know, how we get started as a branch manager, we've made it about as easy as possible. The initial deposit is $2,500, but now we're breaking that down into $250 payments, and you would just navigate through our website to submit an inquiry. So what I want to do now is open it up for questions and comments and concerns, but the goal today clearly is twofold. To try to motivate you through education and facts to suggest we need to be teaching together in your communities. And I understand, you know, we're on Zoom right now, and I understand that we're now in an age of distance learning, but some topics are better learned face to face. And this is one of those. And secondly, you're going to have a lot higher conversion into your other B2B services if you've developed a relationship with them. And when you spend a day with someone, you develop a relationship with them. So point number 1 is to convey the importance of doing this. And the second point of today's lesson is to show you there's 3 different scenarios. You can pick from which of those 3 that you want to do. We can do all 3 of those. We can do 2 of the 3. We can do 1 of the 3, or I guess you could do 0 of the 3. And we can do these as frequently as you want, because there's no shortage of demand, and we're helping more and more people, and you're going to generate more and more income. So let's go through now your questions and comments. Tony says, excellent analogy, and he's referring back to the teaching analogy I used earlier. Great to use with clients as well. And I think that is, thank you, Tony. I think that's important because, again, the typical small business owner is just thinking, I just need the results, right? I just need capital. Why am I not funded? Why don't I have capital? Well, you have to be prepared first. You have to meet the underwriting criteria first, or you won't be approved. It's a rather elementary view to think that all I need to do is want money and I get money. You have to qualify for it. And that's what we do together, you and I. There's almost 100 of us on this webinar right now. Just imagine the economic impact that we could make in 100 different communities if we just each committed to have 1 workshop in the month of June. With an average of 20 attendees, we would be impacting, what would that be, 2,000 small businesses. Incredible. Okay, so let's move on to the next comment. Thank you, Tony, for that. Peter says he loves scenario 2, and I do too. I, again, just have to give William kudos for it, not only thinking about it, but implementing it. And again, we're doing it this weekend. All right. Beth says, good morning, Thomas. Do we need to attend the workshops? That's a good point. I'll say the answer is no. The anticipation would be that if you're going to facilitate a workshop, that you would be there to help facilitate the workshop in person. But if there's a reason We have a couple folks that have health issues that would prevent them from traveling, and others just geographic. So we would say, no, it's not a requirement to be there. If you can facilitate a workshop, you can still receive benefit without attending. But for those of you that are branch managers, you know, our primary focus would be, of course, setting up workshops in our backyard. But the answer would be, Beth, no, you don't have to attend the workshop to be paid. Didn't anticipate that question, Beth. Thank you for asking. Okay, Nanette says, all scenarios, writing policies, the BM who invite. Okay, so we have a branch manager who's involved with all of these workshops. And so you could be the branch manager, or if you don't want to be a branch manager, we can work with another. And the branch managers are going to be writing. Well, you got to keep in mind, the branch managers are the ones that are trained and prepared to truly help facilitate these. So if you're not a branch manager, this is not forcing you to become one, but there's going to always be a branch manager involved with these. And if the branch manager that's involved is a licensed agent, then they'll write the key person policy. But we have a number of branch managers who are not licensed, and that's fine. And then we'll work together to find someone else to write those policies. And then Nanette asks also, usually a branch manager is not the host, because as soon as we start thinking like that, now we've added a whole lot of work, right? Because now the branch manager has to go get space, and they may not have space. And now the branch manager has to put the butts in the seats, and that takes effort. Normally what we want to do is work with hosts. So normally the branch manager is not the host, but they could be, but that shouldn't be the norm. We want to find those key influencers that already have space and or already have spheres of influence and work with them. Thank you, Nanette, for that question. The Chicago event is a closed meeting. It's for a specific organization, and so there's no guests. Otherwise, we would have invited you all to attend. But what you'll see is in many cases, when we're setting up these workshops, it's hosts that have a sphere of influence, and in some cases, it's a closed training. It's not open to the public. And then other cases, like chambers, a lot of times, they'll just have two different price points. Chamber members and non-members, where members usually get a little bit of a discount, but they would allow anyone to come in for exposure. But the Chicago event's not open to the public. But to answer your question, it's going to be at their office building. All right. Robert Martin wrote one word, audience. And I'm trying to infer what that means, but what I think that means, Robert, is you're a straight to the point type of guy, and you're saying it's all about the audience, and that's right. We need attendees to come in and learn this material and use it to be able to access capital. And by having attendees involved with any or all these three scenarios, then you're able to monetize it. So that's a good point, Robert. If we had to nail this whole discussion down to one word, I guess it would be audience, like you just did. Okay, Nanette asks, what do we need to prepare as the host? Well, the first thing we need to do is have a host that is interested and or committed, and a date. And at that point, then we can lock down the date, make sure myself or one of the two other trainers is available, and then we're able to execute. So it starts with that level of preparation. In terms of what equipment does the host need, in general, the host needs to provide a room, and then we're going to need basic AV equipment, which would be a projector or a screen or a flat screen TV that we can project to from a laptop. And so it's really just that basic. Now, Normally, we try to limit these workshops to 20 to 30 people, Nanette. If you're planning on what we label, not very well labeled, but a super workshop, if we're going above 30, then all of a sudden now we're going to need AV equipment, right? Because we're going to have to have a microphone and speakers if it's that large of a room. I did an access to capital workshop for 105 people. That's the largest I've done. And you're going to have a microphone and speakers typically for that large of an audience. But normally, if we're just doing a normal workshop, which is 20 to 30 or less, then usually we don't need a microphone and speakers, because we should be in a quiet area so we're not competing with outside noise. So pretty basic, Nanette. Thank you for asking. Let's see. Antonio asked, how often should we look to schedule classes? Well, two things to consider, Antonio. We're to send a trainer out for your first couple classes to get you really comfortable and what we say confident and competent to do these. And at some point, you might not need a trainer to come out anymore. When we send a trainer out, it's at no cost to you. And as long as we're meeting these guidelines. And we can do as many of these workshops as you want, and we'll continue to send trainers out as frequently as you can help us set up workshops. But obviously, you all are bright and motivated, and so after you've seen one, then in the second one, if you're comfortable, we might watch you conduct it and just be there for backup, and then by the third, you might be able to do them on your own. If not, that's okay. There's no penalty. And we would do a 50-50 split with you, even if the trainer's coming out, as long as we're hitting these numbers. Okay, so James says, my take from this is using scenario 3 from various leads as a great lead in for the other scenarios. Yeah, I don't disagree. Scenario 3 is general business financial literacy topics, and you've probably seen the list, and you can click on this and see the list of topics. Not really a replacement for scenario 1 or 2. Scenario 1 or 2 is we're rolling up our sleeves and we're building a loan package, right? So we're ready to go to funding afterwards. Scenario 3 is more general education. That's still useful. And what I would do, if I could paint a picture, I would start with the host and set up either scenario 1 or 2. We go in, we have a good showing, and then we set up a reoccurring educational calendar afterwards. I might be doing scenario 3 weekly or monthly, and then as often as it seems prudent based upon the host and their sphere of influence, then repeating the full day workshops. So we will always want to start with just one individual event, otherwise you're asking too much too soon from a prospective host. But once we have a relationship and a successful event underneath our belt, then it's very practical to put together an ongoing calendar on a recurring basis. Thank you, James. Carl asks, is it possible to charge more for scenario 3? I guess you could, but again, if you look at what we're covering, it's good information, but I don't know. I think you might be stressing it a bit. Now, what we said, stressing a bit to charge more than $20 for that 1 hour session. What we've talked about before, and it's not listed here, is we can group these and we can do blocks of half day or full day, and of course that would increase your income by the more time spent. But you're a hell of a salesman, Carl, if you can bring people in for a 1 hour class and charge them $250. But you're probably that good, and I'm not. So, yeah, I mean, we can be flexible here. We're not sharing in the income. We ask that you split it 50-50 with the host. But if you and the host want to charge more or charge less, that's frankly between you and them. We're not part of that revenue. Okay, thank you, Carl, for bringing that up. Oh, my Calendly link is calendly.com/BCLI. Thank you, James. All right, Marquisha says, good morning, Marquisha. For those of us who are used to working with regular conversations, how do we start the conversation and business to get the host for classes? That's a great point. So let's go ahead and role play that. Let me stop the share for a second. And let me navigate over to our site and then share that again. So, here's Smart Money Alliance, and we're talking about the business financial literacy topics, scenario 3. And then here's the access to capital workshop, which was scenario 1, and it's all spelled out here. And then scenario 2, the William model, was taking this program and just rolling in-person education with it. So, but that's not the point. In terms of, Marquisha's asking, how do we start this conversation? So I would be right here in my mindset, the access to capital workshops, and let's role play. So for example, Joseph is online here, and let's say Joseph is the leader of some organization. And I'd approach Joseph and I'd say, hey, Joseph, my name's Thomas Montgomery. I'm with a 501c3 nonprofit called Smart Money Alliance. We've received some grant funding to help improve business financial literacy to help small businesses access capital. And I wanted to see if we might be able to collaborate with your organization to conduct a one-day workshop. The one-day workshop is very practical. It's very relevant, what we would do for a group of 20 to 30 small business owners, and they could be pre-launch, startup, or existing. What we would do, Joseph, is we would provide some financial literacy education in the beginning. But what's really awesome about this is that we're going to roll up our sleeves and create a lender-compliant business plan and financial projections with some of the miscellaneous other items that are needed right there in that day, Joseph. So once they've completed this one-day curriculum, they'll be able the following day to literally go apply for a business loan. Now, Joseph, I know you may be thinking, well, why do small business owners need this? Well, most small business owners don't know the right type of capital for their circumstance, and they usually don't meet the underwriting criteria. So what we're going to do is literally help them meet the underwriting criteria by getting everything in order. And then secondly, with our capital match, helping them identify the right source or sources of capital based upon their circumstance. And I'd pause, and then Joseph would give some sort of response, or I might ask, well, what do you think about that? Chances are Joseph's first question would be, well, how much does it cost, right? That's when people can't evaluate anything else, they'll usually ask cost first. And he said, well, Joseph, that's a great point. So it's a subsidized amount. It's $499 to go through that full day curriculum. And I know $499 is not a drop in the bucket, but if you were to go out and hire a for-profit professional to help you do the same thing, to put your loan package and financial projections and put everything together, it'd be $5,000 to $10,000, and it would probably take 30 to 90 days. So what we're doing, Joseph, is knocking it out in one day and doing it for a fraction of the cost. Now, I don't want to mislead you, Joseph. It's possible that once we get a workshop set up and have the date secured, we might be able to find some sponsors that would make that even more affordable to the attendees. So, Joseph, what we need to do is just simply find a date that you have the space available, one day, and then once we have that date secured and a trainer confirmed, then what we can do is go ahead and move into promotion. And so we would work with you to provide you the content, Joseph, to get the message out to your sphere of influence. Now, you can have this as a closed event, Joseph, or an open event. A closed event means only your membership, your congregation, your clients, whatever the right term would be for Joseph, would be that'd be a closed event. Some of our host partners like to open it up to the broader community because now it becomes a great kind of PR piece, helps you reach out and develop more clients, more chamber members, more congregation, what have you. So Joseph, I have a resource page on the nonprofit's website. There's a YouTube video that you could watch, or better yet, you could watch it with Joseph right then. And then once Joseph has committed, or at least tentatively committed, you'd put Joseph information up here at the top. You'd click the third box saying that Joseph is interested in being a host. You'd put in here the preferred date and the specific location, the exact street address, and of course your information, and then we can go ahead and execute that. Now you may also want to mention to Joseph or your prospective host that we can do a revenue share with them, whereby they generate revenue for every attendee. But that's up to you. Some hosts that's going to be very appropriate for, and some hosts cannot or would not or cannot accept any financial benefit. So you'll have to use your discretion. So with that, Markeisha, that was a long drawn out role play, but that's somehow how I would, something like what I would say, but you can bottle it as you would like. The bottom line is you want to drive them back to this page where the content is and explain it to them. All right. Let's see. Rainier says, under the Express program, so let's go up to it. Do we still guarantee some sort of capital raise? No, there's no guaranteed capital raise under the SBA Express because their business model may be a bad one. They may not be compliant. So what they're getting is a loan package, and that's for the $19.99 that we split 50-50 with you, Rainier, and all branch managers. And then secondly, then the 1.99% performance fee, which is split 50-50 with you. Of course, there's no performance fee if there's no capital raise. So there's not a guaranteed capital raise for this. Great question. Simona says she's confused. And so yes, you can keep joining us for training, Simona, or you can certainly use my Calendly link and schedule. That'd be fine. Dion asks for scenario 2, which is the SBA Express program. Can they finance the $19.99? Yeah, I mean, we can direct them to lenders that would be a personal loan to finance the $1,999. It wouldn't be a business loan yet, right? Because we've not built the business package. That's the whole point of going through the program. But if they don't have $19.99 and they don't have, well, if they don't have $1,999, that might not be the right program for them. You might want to help them move over to the 4-week access to capital. But that's frankly between you and them. But yes, they can go to lanterncredit.com and they can apply for a personal loan for the $19.99 if they would like. Okay, William says, thanks so much. You're welcome. Thank you, William. You're an all-star. Antonio asked, what information do we need to send the prospect host to get them to sign off? Again, it's real simple. It's just taking them to this page here, the Access to Capital Workshop page, Antonio, educating them kind of like the little role play that we just did, and you're good to go. Nanette asking about audience size. And so, yeah, if we're doing the Access to Capital Workshop, we're looking for a minimum of 20 to make sure that it's economically viable for us and for you. If we're doing the William model, the SBA Express program, we can drop that down to as little as 10 is where we'd like to be, but we can make it work with as little as 6. Antonio says, thanks, you're welcome. Kwong asks, is the coming up SBA Express workshop available to attend or register? But it's a closed event. The host has decided to make it closed. But Kwong, you got to remember, the point is we'll come to you. You don't have to travel to Chicago. Kwong, we'll come to you and teach one of these workshops together, and we'll pay you the way that we just described on the sheet a moment ago. That's what I want you all to understand. It's a field training event with a trainer coming to you. So it's not a model where you need to go somewhere else and get trained. Instead, you need to find a host, get the date secured, and we come to you and you get paid instead of you having travel expenses and instead of you paying to go to the class. Thank you, Kwon. Yes, and McLenn's asking about the zip code rule, and that's right. Yeah, so the zip codes, each branch has exclusivity for zip codes, and so primarily you should be trying to set up workshops and host relationships in your zip code. If you're going to try to develop one in somewhere else that's not in your zip code, we're going to have to see if that's available, because now you might be infringing on someone else's space. So primarily, you should be doing workshops, McLenn, in your 4 zip codes. That's why you chose those 4, because you said, yep, I'd like to help improve the business financial literacy and help this community. Very good. Joseph asked, how far apart geographically can a regional manager be with his branch managers? And so what Joseph is talking about is the regional director. And regional directors can operate virtually anywhere in the country and have branches anywhere. You don't have to be in a geographic similar area. Great question, Joseph. Carl says, I am. And Carl, I don't remember what you're responding to, but I would agree you are. And let's see here. Oh, so Beth's asking, okay, if we're not a branch manager, how do we go about getting these workshops set up? It's going to start the same way. What you're going to do is use the pitch that we just role played and talk to the prospective host, get the information submitted. We're going to see that where you're wanting to do a workshop is not in your geographic area or you're not a branch manager, and then we'll facilitate the discussion with the branch manager. So frankly, from your perspective, the front end looks the same if you're a branch or not a branch. How we implement it will vary a bit. Peter's asking about promotional materials, and they'll probably be more developed, but really our primary focus is these access to capital workshops, or if you want to step it up a bit, you know, as William has done, you can pitch it off the SBA Express program. But what I'd recommend is frankly using this video right here and this content right here and using this as your talking points, Peter. Tony asked question, how does the option 2 seminar paid for when the $19.99 is up front? Well, what we're doing in the scenario 2, the William model, is we're enrolling people in the SBA Express program and then offering to gather them together to knock it out in one day using a host. So that the pricing model is just simply based off of the SBA Express program. This is designed to be done remotely, but we certainly can gather everyone and knock it out in one day like we're doing in Chicago. So the payout is based as stated here. You make $1,000 per person that enrolls in the SBA Express program. You make half of the performance fee on the back end. And then of course you're selling the key person policy if you're licensed to do so. Robert asked if the role playing is recorded. Yes, sir, we're recording this right now. We're recording me talking to you about the recording. Peter says, excellent scripting. Thank you, Peter. Let's see. Beth says, with 25 to 30 small business owners in a room, there will be a range of different industries represented. That's correct. Yeah, and you're right. And even if you didn't have different industries, which you will have, you'll have pre-launch and some startup and some existing businesses, but we use a cloud-based software for the business plan and financial projections. And so what we're going to do is teach and train and support on what we're looking for, but they'll need to provide the answers. So for example, we need to identify who's our target audience. Well, probably everyone in that room is going to have a different target audience because they represent different industries, so forth. and that's fine. We're not there to tell them, here's who your target audience is. We're here to help them understand, okay, this is why the question is relevant. Here's some key ideas of what the lenders are looking for, and then they fill that in. And if for some reason they don't have all the data that they need to complete that at that moment in time, then that's okay. Then they, of course, understand it and can complete it shortly thereafter. But yeah, your question's right, Beth, and that's why we need to do the first couple classes together, because until you get really comfortable with the process, it can be rather intimidating trying to essentially do 20 different business plans at once for 20 different people. But we'll show you how to do it. It'll be fun. Burnsy's asking, so no, you don't need to be a branch manager for any of those scenarios, but there'll always be a branch manager involved. So you find the host and we'll help you from there. Keep it simple. Peggy says she'll be submitting her dates for mid to end of July, the first week of August. Excellent. Have host already. I knew you're going to be an all-star, Peggy. I was just waiting to see those hosts come through in those dates. Great. Antonio asked about that script that we just did. Yep. And I'll be sending this recording out here soon. Still recording at the moment. Beth says, best practice to ask for 2 or 3 possible dates. Well, yeah, and that's not bad either. Here's how I would approach the date question with a prospective host. So once I've introduced the Access to Capital workshop and created some value and interest, so here's part 2 of the scripting. Part 1 was what we already had gone through. And I was using Joseph as an example. So I'd say, well, Joseph, how does that sound to you? Do you think this is needed in our community? And if you've not convinced him to say, hell yeah, it's needed. Yeah, these small businesses are hurting and they're not going to be able to get it done on their own. If he can't come back with something like that, you've not sold him on the importance of business financial literacy. Then I would follow up and say, well, have you done anything similar to this before? How have you, Joseph, before gathered your membership or congregation clients, whatever that term is for Joseph, and helped educate them? And then you just start digging a little bit. Well, did you find that there was a certain day of the week that was better than other days? How much advance notice have you found, Joseph, that you needed to reach out and get on the schedule for your sphere of influence? Because again, Joseph knows his people better than you or I ever will, right? Because it's his people, his congregation, his membership, his clients, what have you. And so with that, then Joseph may come back and say, yeah, we really need to schedule it 60 days out to make this work. Or it could be like William, I need 5 days out, right? After the small aneurysm I had there in the lawn and garden section of Target, I was able to rearrange my thoughts and work with William on coming in 5 days later. But the bottom line is, it's just a real comfortable conversation. They have the space, or they should have the space. They have the sphere of influence for the butts and the seats. You're just helping connect the dots in terms of us being a very valuable resource. And again, you can pitch the revenue share with them if you would like. All right, let's see here. What other questions do we have? Tony asked a good question. What's the difference in the proposition between the Access to Capital workshop and the SBA Express program? Well, with the SBA Express program, we're laser focused on getting an SBA 7A Express loan. So we're going to actually complete that loan application during this process and apply for funding. If they're going through this virtually, remotely, we should be applying for funding around day 15 of the process. That gives us 14 days to put the loan package together, apply around the 15th day, and we're getting funding normally in about 2 weeks thereafter. And thus, when we talk about 30 days to SBA funding, that's right. The Access to Capital workshop, the 4-week Access to Capital program is a 4-week process that is not laser focused on getting an SBA loan as the outcome. It might be the outcome, but with the SBA Express, we're literally helping them go apply for and getting that funding, and there's a performance fee involved. in contrast with the 4-week access to capital program or the access to capital workshop. In either of those two scenarios, we're not actually helping them apply for funding, and there is no performance fee. There's no back-end fee. Now, if they should desire more assistance and we feel like that we could help them, we could always pivot them into a program that has further support and back-end fees. But those are the significant differences between the access to capital curriculum and the SBA Express. Again, the SBA Express is laser focused on getting an SBA 7A loan. We're actually filling out that application, and everything is focused on that specific outcome, which is different than a more general approach. And of course, it's more expensive. It's $19.99 for the loan package. And again, we can do this in-person training, but normally, Tony, it's done remotely. All right, hopefully that was helpful. Monique says she's looking forward to doing a live workshop. She has a webinar scheduled for tomorrow. 52 people registered. Great job. Great job. James asks, what's the commission structure for an affiliate for signing up a client who pays for the $4.99 Capital Ready program, which is here? Well, no, you're asking about $4.99 access to capital workshop, I guess is what you're asking for. So this is what you're asking about, James. And we split this 50-50 with you, 50-50. Tony says, very clear explanation. You're welcome, sir. McLean asks, how do we do 4 weeks program? Well, I don't exactly understand that question, McLean, but what I would recommend is enroll in it. Go over here and click on the 4 weeks access to capital program. Review it just like you would a client. You click here, put in your information, click that top box, put in anything else you want in, hit submit or send form. We'll send over to you the DocuSign and we'll get you enrolled so you understand it. All right, well, we again were successful in running 26 minutes long, so I apologize for the long training, but I think it's very important that we have our arms around the value of going out and teaching these workshops. Also, I think it's okay to be a contrarian. So we're currently in the environment whereby remote learning is becoming more and more prevalent. And that's great for us, for you and for us, because this allows us to be even more differentiated. I can tell you from teaching college courses to in-person students versus online students, this subject matter is best suited for in-person learning. So we can be there, answer questions live, have a structured time frame, avoid multitasking and distractions, and get it done, in a very tight time frame, very proactive. So I think it's fine that the rest of the world is moving towards virtual learning and we're going upstream. We're the fish that's going upstream here because it is an opportunity to have the greatest effect, have both for the clients. And again, you're going to have a much stronger relationship with people after you've spent 8 hours with them, helping them generate a quantifiable outcome than just being another voice on the internet. All right, well, thank you all. We look forward to working with you, and let's get these workshops scheduled. Have a great day.